Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Google Reference College webinar. I'm Kat Lamin. I'm a Google Certified Trainer, Innovator and Coach, and I'm joined today, very excitedly, by Bridgend College in Wales. I'm going to leave them to introduce themselves, so I'm going to very, very quickly and easily hand over to Scott.
Hi, Kat. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Welcome and croeso to this webinar. We're delighted to be here. So I'm going to bring in the rest of my colleagues who are here as well. We'll introduce ourselves. So my name is Scott. I am digital lead at Bridgend College, and my role involves everything to do with Google Workspace and all of our software across the campus. I've been in post now 2 years, which is about the same amount of time as we've had Google. I'm a Google certified trainer and coach as well recently. Woohoo! Got the certification last week, so that's all exciting. I'm going to hand over now to Sasha for her to introduce herself as well.
Hi, yeah, I'm Sasha and I work in Bridgend College. I work in the sports department as a lecturer. I've been there about 8 years now and I really love Bridgend College and everything it stands for. So yeah, nice and short for me. So I'm going to introduce Pete now.
Hi there, my name is Pete Dunford. I'm a Google certified trainer and innovator. I'm a lecturer in the animal care department at Bridgend College, and I'm also one of the learning technologists and a teaching and learning coach. So yes, I get to go around and see all sorts of everything that goes on in the different departments around the college, and it's lovely in that. So I'm going to pass over to Kim.
Hi, I'm Kim. I'm the lead assistive technologist at Bridgend College, and I'm also a Google Level 2 educator. Pass you back to Scott.
Fabulous. Thanks all. Yes, I thought I would just do a little bit of an overview of the college to start with. I think it's helpful to get some context. So we are an FE college, so we're a further education college in Bridgend, as Kat said. And we have roughly 800 staff and about 5,000 students across full-time FE, part-time, and the HE provision that we deliver. And we deliver levels from entry level all the way through to level 5 and level 6 sort of degree level. We are a Google reference college, and we've had Google Workspace now for just over 3 years, since around 2018. And we got our Google Reference College certification last year. So the whole organization is on Google. We use Gmail as our email, and then all of our students use Google Classroom, and it's the only available VLE. So I just wanted to give a bit of a context as to sort of what we're about. So without further ado then, let's kind of get on to the first of our themes, if you like, that will run through the rest of this webinar. We're going to start with Sasha, and we're going to talk a little bit about Google Sites, in particular ePortfolios. But if we just start with Sasha, if you want to give a little bit of an overview of how you use Google Sites in class, and what does that mean for your learners?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so first of all, I'll tell you where I use it then. So obviously I use it within the sports department. I teach on a level 3 and a level 4 qualification at the moment. And I decided to use it within the level 2 learners because it's a small cohort, and I thought it was the first time of me trying to use it as an ePortfolio, so I thought they would be the best people to initially try it with. So I used it basically for recording assessments, but yeah, so that's basically the overview of where I use it. So why? Well, I've used Google Classroom, obviously, since college I've been using it, and I've really enjoyed it. I've used it from the beginning quite wholeheartedly. I've used Google Classroom for my marking, for giving all my students all the information, for them putting their assignments up, for me giving their feedback, and I really enjoyed it. And I enjoyed the freedom from paperwork, and I think the kids do as well. You know, I think they enjoy that freedom too. So I thought, if the Google Classroom works out well for me, what else can I do? What can I bring in that might make my course a bit more modern, maybe a bit more up to date? So I decided to go with G-Sites, go with a way of getting them to upload or do all their assignments in one place. So why did I use it? I thought that it would be accessible for me, accessible for my students, and that was kind of one of the main things for me. I needed an accessible platform. Part of the topic I chose was sports injuries, so I chose to do it over one module that I taught, and sports injuries was one I chose it for. And it was something I've developed over the years. I wanted the the assessments to be different than just writing something. So I developed to use videos, and actually I thought video assessment then going on to a Google site would actually be a really, really good idea. It would be so easy for people to watch and accessible. So that's what I did. I just wanted it to evolve. That's why I use it. I wanted the whole module to evolve from just writing for the sake of writing to pass an assessment. So also within Bridgend College, we encourage learning other skills, taking other skills away. So bilingualism might be one then, so incorporating the use of Welsh language. Problem solving might be another one. So I thought, how else can I involve learning another skill which they can take to the future? So for me, I thought, right, if they do a website as a Google site, they're actually learning how to build a website. So say in sport, they might become a physiotherapist or a sports coach or a chiropractor. They could actually take that skill of that Google site from what they've learned in this year in college, and hopefully as they carry on through, and apply that in the future. And that's what I really wanted to do. I want them to take a life skill away from it. And I believe truly that using Google for Education, all the different components of it, is a life skill. So yeah, so it linked really well to the assessment, linked really well to future, linked well to employability. So it's all those little components I also wanted to include. And also, I suppose, stretch and challenge for the students. I wanted to think about that in my classroom, because level 2 has a diverse range of learners. They're not all the same ability, as we all know, teaching in the classrooms, everybody's different. So I thought actually a site building an ePortfolio would allow them to stretch and challenge themselves. And they could stretch and challenge themselves to as much as they would like to as well. So they can put as much information in, as many links as they wanted. They could put as much video in as they wanted. It would be a really good way of stretching and challenging. So yeah, and I want everyone to have the same opportunities. So every different abilities to have those same opportunities, and it allows for that as well. And I think when we think about the quality process, which we do have to think about as well, not just the classroom, easy shareable. It's accessible for anybody. So IQAs, EQAs, you can just give them the link and they can have a look. And it's really good and it's really accessible. So yeah, that was my main thing then, I suppose. The main why is I wanted something modern, something up to date, something different, not the same old writing things. I wanted to take a skill away, and that was the main elements for me. If I was gonna sorry, Scott.
No, go, carry on. Do you want to stop?
So I was just gonna say, really, if people are thinking about using it in their own teaching practice, within their own classrooms, I should go for it. And one of the main tips to share would be make one yourself. Might sound a little obvious, but yeah, I made one myself, and I basically made it and developed it. And how I made it was I linked it into the sports injury module that the kids were looking at. So I did the front covers for each assignment as a page on the website. So those kids could look at it any time that they wanted to. They could look at what they needed to do for that assignment. There was links on it to videos that they might want to look at, give them ideas. There was links to the specification that was available online, links to reading to help them underpin their work. So it was all a one-stop shop. Everything was where they could just go in one place and not having to look everywhere for things. It was all in that one place. Yeah, but definitely I would say make one yourself, develop it, practice it, so you can tell your students how to do it. So if they get any teething problems, which there's going to be, you can help them along the way. Yeah, so my journey using it, I really enjoyed it, fully enjoyed it. It's been hasn't been that challenging. I thought it would be really, really challenging. Actually, it was quite simple. I would say that the people in the classroom have really enjoyed using it. They've developed their new skill of doing it as well. And of course, home teaching, when COVID-19 came along, we had to teach at home. Actually, it was quite handy, wasn't it? Because I could assess it, they could assess it from home, and actually we could kind of not work on it together as in give the answer, but work on it together to know where they were, and okay, this is where you need to be next. Have a look at my G site so that you can take the information what you're going to do next. So actually kept that contact of home learning. Of course, there's a problems that not everybody engaged, but that was across the board. But now we're back in it, and they've worked out. I think they're a great addition. A great addition to Google for Education, and I look forward to next year now, COVID-3, and being in college all the time of using it. to far more potential. I'm really excited, and yeah, looking forward to it. And I think that's all from me for now.
Brilliant. Cool. I have a couple of questions, just a few things. Can we just clarify, I'm conscious we might have an audience from all over the world, what level 2, level 3 are? So what kind of student would be in a level 2 class? Age, where would they have come from? What might they have done before?
Level 2, are kind of coming from the school. They're roughly around, say, the GCSE, just after GCSE age group. So, yeah, they're before the A levels. Then I will capture the age group. So they are, yeah, they're kind of pre-level 3, then A level kind of group, if we're thinking about.
And then after level 3, they'd go on to university, yeah. So that
so after level 3, the next journey would be university. Yeah. So yeah, some students do level 2 who could do the level 3, but actually they want to come and do the level 2 first. They want to find out what it's about, and yeah, so that's the journey he would take. That's
fine. So would you say that do the learners themselves collaborate on each other's sites?
No, we didn't do that this time. It was just an individual portfolio. Yeah. So it was as if you built your assignment portfolio on paper, but put it into the internet or onto a Google site where they could actually add a lot more. So actually, previously I had to take a video and put that evidence somewhere, and maybe take written paper, download from a Google Classroom and put that in somewhere. But actually, now it's all in that one place. But not yet. Something we could think of in the future. Could they do videos collaborative? So maybe that's something working together we can think of. Yeah.
Cool. So I suppose if you had to, pick one feature or one thing for Google Sites that's, a bit of the excellent feature, what would you say is the most useful or best reason to
For me, it's being able to put all the different information on there. So an example, then they have to do a risk assessment as part of sports injuries, so they could actually upload that document so it shows on a page. So the ability to be able to put lots of information on there and different information is definitely the most useful, I think, for myself.
Brilliant. That's really interesting. Cool. I tell you what, if we bring Pete and Kim back, I know they've also had some experience with Google Sites, so maybe they'll have something further to add. Pete, anything from you on Google Sites?
Yeah, well, you just mentioned a collaborative site with Sasha there. I did a couple of years ago actually try and do a collaborative site with students as a bit of an experiment with them. And I have to say we had a real laugh with it. It was about 2 or 3 years ago, and none of us really knew what we were doing, but it was a great experience. I got the students as a class to try and produce a revision website. And so we kind of broke down into different groups. I'd set up the template ready, and I assigned each group to one particular page on there, and they all had access through Classroom to where they needed to be. And it was all going beautifully until they started changing the themes. And then it just went to pot. So, if anybody ever wants to do a collaborative site with students, it's a brilliant experience, but set some ground rules first and make sure they know what does what in the site. So I think, what you've done there, Sasha, with having the individual students is absolutely brilliant, because they then know how it all works before they start mucking up what everybody else has done. But yeah, that was my experience with that. I'll do it again in the future, but I think I'll take them a little bit slower, get them to do their own versions first, and then perhaps do a collaborative one.
So even maybe you could link in when they do together in their individual one, so they could do both, maybe. Yeah.
Great, cool, good advice. Kim, anything from you?
Yeah, mine's a bit different because mine's not involved students sort of doing stuff with sites, rather than it being a resource hub for students. So during the first lockdown, I was very conscious, not just our students, but students across the whole of the United Kingdom additional learning needs students didn't really have a hub where there was lots of resources available that I could find. There was brilliant things like GCSE Bite Size and other websites like that, but nothing specifically for learners with additional learning needs. So I used Google Sites to create a one-stop shop with really simple clickable links that they could then shoot off to other websites. And in the end, it was used by over 23 different countries. I can't remember the stats off the top of my head, but needless to say, it was evidently a resource that was really desperately needed, and I was really pleased to be able to sort of pull that together. But it was so simple to use. Sites is just fantastic. It's not a difficult, I think when you say about website building and things like that, that people are like, oh no, I don't do that. But Sites, much like everything else to do with Google Education, is so intuitive that it really wasn't difficult to set up at all. So yeah, that was my experience this year.
Brilliant. Is that a site you can share? Is that something we can kind of put in the comments?
Absolutely. Yeah,
if you get the link, we can, when we come back to talk about accessibility, we can put it in the comments then. Brilliant. There is a question in our private chat from Kat, who you saw earlier, popped in, popped out. So she has asked, what one thing do you wish you knew before using Google Sites, and did you have any disasters? Does anybody want to take that?
That's that one. So I wish I knew it was as simple as it was, because I was quite frightened of doing it initially. I was like, oh my good gosh, what's it going to be like? You know, but actually, no, I wish I'd known it was as simple as it was. Disaster, the only thing that did find is that somebody put their work in and it repeated on the other pages, but we sorted that out, so it wasn't really a disaster. So, but yeah, it was just, I wish I knew it was as simple as it was. Simple.
Brilliant. Great. Okay. Thank you very much, Sasha, for that overview. That was really, really useful. We're going to move on now to our next kind of theme for the webinar. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Google Classroom. So Pete's going to jump into the center of this one. And we're going to talk about how, can you just give us an overview, how you're using it, what you do with it, and any kind of hints, tips, and features that you use and like.
Absolutely. So yeah, we've been using Google Classroom at the college ever since we started with Google Workspace, what was G Suite. And as Scott mentioned earlier, it's been our only VLE for the majority of the students. And so it was kind of everybody jumps in straight away with it. And you know, the first thing to note really with Classroom is that it's so much more than just a repository of information. We used to, on our old VLE, have a lot of lecturers who would just put in lots and lots of individual bits of work, and it wasn't terribly interactive for the students. So we kind of, with Classroom, it lends itself to that interactivity with the assignments. And so that's something that we've all done. And going into COVID, you know, again, it was that opportunity to expand, and lots of people did. But what I really love about Classroom in Bridgend College is that rather than just being student focused, it's actually become a portal for all the staff as well. And so we've got some classrooms that are set up for individual professional development reviews with managers. We've got classrooms set up that are for the entire college staff, to give them digital hints and tips. We've got, Scott actually set that one up. We've got classrooms that are set up for all our level 1 learners across the college to do their level 1 e-tutorials, or we've got one for the level 2 students for their tutorials. We've got classrooms set up for short courses, where we've got the same short course running across different courses, but all kind of being overseen. I've got one which is called Preparing for HE, and we've got the whole course mapped out in a template classroom, and that's shared with all the lecturers who have to deliver it, so they have their own version of it, but it's got all the materials already in there for them. So all they have to do is to duplicate it and then invite their students to their own particular version. And it just works so nicely for making sure you've got that consistency, you've got that standardization across the whole of the organization. So yeah, in terms of how we use Classroom, it's been really exciting the last 12, 18 months, just to see some of the variety that people have come up with for how to use this. One of the classrooms we've had this year in particular is we very much tried as teaching and learning coaches to encourage staff to look at their own learning a little bit more, rather than just doing lesson observations. They're trying to do peer observations a little bit more, what we call teaching triangles. And so we've had particular themes, and we've had our own themed classrooms for those staff that want to do our theme. So Scott and I actually ran one of the themes on digital learning, blended learning, and trying to improve the use of technology in the classroom. And staff joined our classroom, and we were able to just kind of share hints and tips, any important paperwork we're putting out there through the classroom, any forms they have to fill in, it's all there. And what's really nice about all that is that the staff get to experience what it's like as a student. So at the beginning, they were there trying to use Classroom and not having any idea really of how it's going to look to their learners. But now being on the receiving end of it and being a student in there, they're starting to feel a bit more confident about, okay, well, if I do this, that's how it's going to appear. And so I think that the general use of Classrooms really improved because of that. You know, being able to experience it is so much more than just using it, really.
Cool. Yeah, no, I thanks for that overview. It's really interesting. So in terms of, you know, because obviously, for the benefit of the people watching, you're a teaching and learning coach, learning technologist, and obviously spend a lot of time helping out others. Would you say that, you know, it's a particularly techie thing to be able to use Google Classroom, or can anybody use it?
Oh, absolutely anybody. Yeah, it's I can't remember if it was Kim or Sasha earlier who said it. But you know, Google Workspace is so intuitive, and Google Classroom in particular, it's one of those things you have to point out to staff that really they can't break it. They can just play around. It's ever so straightforward. You know, I'll be honest, I quite like things to be complicated sometimes. So when we first switched to Google, there was that part of me that kind of thought, this looks too basic. I'm not sure this is going to be effective because I haven't got lots of options to do fancy things and make it look all whizzy. And actually, it just does what it says on the tin. And that is so brilliant with the learners in particular, because the learners then just don't get so confused. The staff who are really scared, some of them, about adopting this technology, actually they've started and they've gone, oh, I don't know why I wasn't more confident about that. It's fine. And they just totally embraced it. And it's, you know, I'm really privileged as a learning technologist and teaching and learning coach. I've had to interact with so many staff over the last year and try and help them with all this. And it's such a privilege to see that journey that they are on, and see how rapidly they build that confidence. It really doesn't take them long at all to start going, you know what? I've got my head around this. I want to do something else now. I want to push this. What else can I do here? How else can I do this? And it just gets really exciting. You know, going back to Sasha and these ePortfolios of Google Sites, you know, seeing staff members doing that is just absolutely amazing.
Great. I agree. Okay, so if you had to pick one feature of Google Classroom that you couldn't live without.
One feature I can live, topics. I like things to be organized. I like to have that kind of logical view. You know, I very much in Classroom, by default, it posts into the stream as well. If you've never come across Classroom before, then you've got a couple of different tabs: stream, classwork, and people. And the stream's really for your notices, but by default it does post. If you put an assignment or something in classwork, it puts it in stream. So I remove that straight away. You know, that's the first thing I do in any classroom. Go into settings, turn it off, force the students to go to classwork, and there I can have it laid out beautifully how I want it with topics. If I want to have emojis in there, then I can have emojis in there to make it a little bit more interesting. But I'm in control then, and I can get it exactly how I want it and structured the way that I want to show it to the students. I can drag and drop those topics around to highlight to the students what they need to be looking at. And I do that constantly through the year. I'm sure there's a couple of students who kind of learn where things are and then hate me because I move them. But I'm the director there. I'm very much right. This is the stuff at the top. This is what I want you to focus on. And topics really allows you to do that. So that's what I'm going to say. Topics.
I'm very much like that as well, Peter. My classrooms are all very organized into topics, and a lot of people's aren't, but I agree. I think that's so useful. But then my drive is organized as well. Everything's in its right folder, and I know exactly where everything is. Nothing stays in shared with me or anything like that. No, I know. Okay, so I tell you what we'll do then. If we bring Sasha and Kim back in, there we go, from the virtual backstage area, which is all very cool. anything to add on Google Classroom? Shall we come to you, Sasha? Is there anything that you've sort of used it for that Pete maybe hasn't mentioned, or anything different that happens in sport than happens in elsewhere?
No, I think we kind of use it the same. So we use it for information, to give information out, messages of what's going to happen tomorrow, maybe sometimes. We use it as handing assignments, feedback. So feedback, I love to feedback and give feedback on it. You can hand assignments back to students. But yeah, just listening to your point, Pete, about topics, I totally agree. I'm the same. Everything needs to be just not floating around. It needs to be in its own zone, in its own area. And I do exactly the same. I move those topics depending on what I want to concentrate on at that moment in time. But also for me is schedule. When you can schedule something, so that kind of helps me with my planning process. I can put something on for, over the next month. I know it's going to go up when I needed to go up. It takes the stress away for that month. So that is really good as well. I think brilliant, really good.
I agree. I did have a question then, but it's kind of just left my head. Oh yeah, no, I was going to ask about student experience. So what's it like from their side? Is it easy to use from, a 16-year-old student coming out of school? Do they just get it straight away?
Yeah, I think so. Even I teach an evening class, so there's a variety of ages. And I've had people up to say 70. I teach on sports massage, and I use that definitely because you only have them once a week. So that's really important then, that Google Classroom, for that contact time with them. And I would say even the 65-year-old who I had was a bit stressed and about technology, actually really got on with it and really liked it. So yeah, I think all age groups, it's like Pete said, it's simple. It is really simple and nice. Yeah, it looks nice. It's nice.
Yeah, I've got to back that up. My kids use Google Classroom in their school. They're in primary school, so year 2, year 4, and they recently went across to it, and they just got it instantly. It really is so simple for any age to pick up there. It's great.
Awesome. Kim.
Well, I'll back that up.
Yeah, I know.
Because I'm more of a user, as in on the other end. So, like you mentioned at the beginning, I think Pete mentioned it, that staff-wise, we do a lot of our sort of admin HR stuff via Classroom. So I've had things such as performance development reviews, and again, like we said before, it's so intuitive. It's not remotely overwhelming, and it, again, as Pete said, does exactly what it says on the tin. So it's really, really nice resource to use as a user, as well as a teacher or a tutor.
I agree. So the PDR process, it's for the benefit of those watching, the line manager, if you like, is a teacher in the classroom, and then the direct reports are students in the classroom, and then we all have our personal development reviews set to us as assignments via Classroom. So it's quite a cool process. And then obviously the direct reports can't see each other's PDRs because that's how Classroom works, but the teacher, as in the line manager, gets to see everything and can kind of assign tasks and stuff via that process. So we've run it for a year so far. It's getting there in terms of being a refined process, but I think generally it's had pretty good feedback in terms of a PDR.
I think, yeah, and I think the other thing is as well, it's a really accessible way of doing something like that. Admin, when you think of admin, you're like, oh my God, I'm going to have to sit down and droll on for ages about this, that, and the other. And it's a really nice and accessible way of doing something that very typically is not an overly enjoyable thing to, paperwork. But it makes it much more accessible.
Brilliant. Great. Okay, cool.
Can I just jump?
Go on.
I see that there's a question in the chat from Ian asking how many teachers and students access via their phones. And it's interesting, as a classroom teacher, we've got lots of Chromebooks in the college, and I love the Chromebooks, and they are really, really great. I constantly there saying to the students, please use a Chromebook for this piece of work. And it staggers me how many of the students actually just really like just using their phone. So, I mean, these days, one of the first things I do in induction is I make sure the students get their phones out, get them onto the college Wi-Fi, and then we sit there for a lesson downloading all the different Google apps that they're going to find useful and getting them logged on, because it is such an important thing for them. But what's really nice is that the mobile apps work just as nicely as the Chromebooks or laptop. So they really can use their own devices sensibly if they want to. Now, obviously, if they're doing word processing and typing for a long time, that's when I say to them, look, come on, let's not muck around here. Get a Chromebook and you can actually type properly. But yeah, doing things like quickly checking assignments on Google Classroom, submitting them, making little changes, checking their marks. They're constantly on their phones actually doing work, not just on Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah, so just to add there, I actually use it as a teacher on my phone because it's really handy if you're in the car somewhere and obviously not driving. If you just come out of Tesco's after doing your shopping and you think about something, I jump on my phone and have I uploaded that? So yeah, phone is great as well. Like you said, Pete, the apps are really, really good there. The Google for Education, all the apps are really good. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I as well, I'd back that up. I think because we've got a few campuses, so I travel to various campuses, and this is my go-to Google situation. They're fab and just as easy to use on the phone. Like Pete said, for anything slightly more complicated, obviously laptop and desktop is going to be the one you want to go to. But you know, your email, your Meet, everything like that, so easy.
Brilliant, great, thanks team. That was all very useful and interesting. So let's move on then. Let's go to our third theme of the day, and we're going to talk about accessibility, particularly in Chrome and in the Chrome browser. And Kim is going to jump front and center for this one as our assistive technology lead. Is that your job?
It is, yeah, it is. That's right. I said the wrong term at the beginning, but that's the right one.
No. It was all part and parcel. Okay, so can you give us a little overview of some accessibility features, perhaps of Google Chrome, and kind of more about what you do? And
yeah, sure. So I'm the assistive technology lead, as Scott said. So I primarily work with our learners who have additional learning needs. But that's kind of what I want to really talk about really is the fact that all of the accessibility options built within Chromebooks, but also the Chrome extensions, really, we work on the idea that accessibility is for all, because it can help everybody in different ways. So although I do spend more time with our additional learning needs learners, we do try and push out the fact that these inbuilt accessibility options really can make everybody's lives easier. And that includes the tutors as well. I've worked with tutors who, you know, will say, oh, is there an easier way I can do this? And there always is. So that is essentially what I do. I trawl for anything new, which is almost weekly at the moment. So there was a new Google update the other week with better captioning, mouse panning, new Chromevox accessibility features, which if you don't know about this, it just sounds like I'm saying nonsensical words, but they're all accessibility features. So it's really great. There's lots of stuff. So there's two distinct areas that we look at. So we've got Chrome extensions, which are purely for the Chrome browser. So they're sort of outsourced. It's people who will create extensions, things that can help you whilst you're within the Chrome browser. And then there are the inbuilt accessibility features into Chromebooks, which are a lot more in depth. So we use them for a variety of different things, like I said earlier. So if students have dyslexia, for example, there are a number of inbuilt accessibility features as well as extensions. So the most common are usually changing fonts or coloured overlays. They're two really popular ones. And then we go all the way up then to the slightly more complicated. So if we've got any learners with visual impairments, we do use Chromevox, which is, it has a number of accessibility options, but it's things like screen reader primarily. But it also links into Braille readers as well. So there's, like I say, and you can probably tell, there's just a mass array of accessibility options that suit every learner that we have in some way, shape or form, and they're just improving week on week.
Great. So in terms of how it sort of goes, you say you find kind of a cool new extension. How do you sort of get that out there across the college? What's the avenue?
So so there's a few avenues. So we've got a resource website which is purely for our learners, and we also work with a company, educational technology company called Aspire to Be. They're based in South Wales, but they cover the whole of the United Kingdom and perhaps even more, I'm not sure. But we work with them to create some tutorial videos and training videos. So that's sort of for our staff, but also for learners as well. So there's a few different avenues, and on occasion as well, I'll use and abuse Scott's Classroom, which is for staff, and obviously ask you to send out any new or interesting ones that I think would be beneficial. But primarily, suggestions will come via the assessment route. So a learner will come to me for an assistive technology assessment to help them access their curriculum, and then recommendations are made usually through that way. But we also do have training. Pete mentioned teaching triangles. So myself and my colleague Mel took one of those about sort of making teaching more accessible. So things like that, CPD days as well. That's when we managed to get the word out about these new and exciting features that Google has.
Great. That training sort of tutorial videos thing you mentioned with Aspire to Be, is that available?
Yeah, it's a brilliant website that was created by a guy called Ryan, and it's called Include Edu. So the website is Include Edu, as in education, .online. So you can find that there, and they cover loads of fab Google extensions and accessibility options.
Brilliant. I'm sure we can find that link somewhere and put it in the comments if you haven't already. I'm just checking. There we go. There's the link in the private chat, which will be in the comments shortly for anybody who's interested. We do have a question from Ian in the comments, and the question is: have these tools, the accessibility tools, been even more important through the last 12 months of lockdown and working from home?
Absolutely, yeah, without a doubt. And I think how technology in general, we've all seen it in the past year, is just advanced massively online learning. The same can be said for accessibility. And I've seen a huge influx. I think that's why we say about, accessibility is for all, is because I've had learners who aren't additional needs learners who perhaps if we'd been on site that I wouldn't have come across normally. I've had learners this year get in touch and say, with online learning, I'm really struggling, or, there's accessibility extensions as well that are good for if you're spending too much time on the screen. It'll say, it'll flag up and it'll say, take a break, and I think that counts as accessibility as well, because it's all about looking after our learners and making sure that they're, our motto is be all that you can be. So and without accessibility options, arguably you can't do that. So yeah, without a doubt, COVID has made accessibility features even more important.
Yeah, and I really like that idea of accessibility for all. I think it's something that, if it doesn't necessarily personally affect you, you don't really think about it, and yet it's such an important thing for us all to bear in mind that not everybody has the means or to be able to access things in the same way that you do. And I think that's really, really important. I like what you said about go on.
Oh, I was just going to say it's the great equalizer, isn't it? Not everybody needs it, but it benefits all. You don't necessarily, if you troll through any accessibility features, you'll find something that will benefit you for sure. Even, if you're busy and you've got a text message and you get a text to speech, and that might help you in the moment just because you're being perhaps a little bit lazy and can't be bothered reading it. But that is life changing for a learner who really, really struggles to read text, but can really, really do well from having text read aloud to them, but they haven't got Joe Blogs to read it to them. So a feature like that to you might mean nothing, but it might be completely life-changing for somebody who's in education, and that's their only stumbling block. So yeah, it's fab.
Yeah, absolutely. And things like Moat as well, I think of, with the voice commenting extension. I think that's such a useful tool just across the board, from an accessibility point of view. And a cute dog. What's his name? Come on, he's in now. Or she?
Pudding. It's called Pudding, and it's still going.
Brilliant. I love a dog in a webinar. It wouldn't be a webinar without a dog. If Pudding has finished and you're up to answer one more question, there is one from Ian. And this is one I think we've talked about before personally, and I think this is really interesting. If there's one area of kind of accessibility assistance that's not well addressed currently, that you need more help with, what would that be?
That's a really good question. Truthfully, it's so there's loads of stuff for sort of dyslexia, autism, ADHD, things like that. But really the inbuilt stuff, which thankfully Google, like I was saying to you earlier, Chromevox has just come out with a new update, which I haven't had yet the opportunity to try. But it is things like the support for people who have visual impairments. I think Google have really, hammered out and are continuing to update and make features like that much better. But that would be it. But there's loads. I mean, you just have to look on Google stuff. They're doing so much. They're having sort of hackathons and things like that, and they're having people with disabilities coming forward and saying, this is an issue that I have. Here's a challenge. And then these, incredible people are coming back and they've created these amazing things. So really, I don't think there's anything that like desperately needs doing, because people are they're doing it already. A person just has to say, I've got this issue, and a week later you've got, some incredible engineers creating these things. So yeah, but there's loads of great stuff out there. I'd thoroughly recommend anybody working in education to take a look at Google's accessibility options.
Brilliant. Great. So if we bring in Pete and Sasha back, they may have some more to say, but thanks for that, Kim. That was really, really interesting. Great little overview. Pete, Sasha, have you had any kind of experience with accessibility tools in class, particularly with students? And is there anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, I had a couple of things. Kim kind of mentioned it earlier that usually accessibility gets pigeonholed for being specific students who really need it. I think it's fascinating, again, going back to the inductions I do with students, and I've been in with various classes, very often one student might say, oh, is there a particular tool that would help me do such and such? And I've learned now, rather than trying to just address it with that student, I now do it on the board at the front, because you can guarantee that there'll be a few eyebrows that go, oh, that would be really helpful. And they're all doing it then. And so actually, it just really helps to do it as a whole class activity and say, right, guys, how would you like to personalize your Chrome? How would you like to work in a way that suits you? Throw your ideas at me, and we'll go through the Chrome Web Store. We'll see what we can find that you can then put on your computer. I had one the other day with a student who would normally have a reader in an exam, and she's been struggling with a bit of revision, and trying to point out to her, she has been shown before, but showing her again, read and write, and the fact that it can read the work out to them. But again, it's letting students know this isn't just in case you need a reader normally. I say to them, look, if you had to write an essay or a report or anything like that, use read and write or a tool like it to read your work back to you, and you can hear the mistakes that you've made in it. Because usually when they try and read over to proofread it, they end up missing all these spelling mistakes or the grammar mistakes. But you get one of these tools to read the work back, and suddenly it's really obvious, and they can hear straight away that actually that doesn't sound right, and the computer didn't know what that word was, so I need to try and change that. And so just using some of these tools in their everyday workflow can be really helpful.
I think that's really important as well, to remove that stigma, because there's that thing with learners as well, that sometimes they'd rather miss out completely than stand out in front of their peers. So by being like, look, which is what I said in my teaching triangles, is that as a tutor, the best thing you can do is be like, oh, I use this, because it's not a big deal. So yeah, that's really awesome, Pete.
Yeah, you both said really what I would say. Read and write is great. It's quite close to my heart, actually. My daughter and my brother are dyslexic, and all those tools weren't really there. My daughter's 25 now, so I really wish what we have now was available then, because yeah, it's benefit even as yourself as a teacher. You know, read and write is really good as well. Sometimes you could do with a little break, and you know, reading it back to you is quite nice, isn't it? So yeah, I think it's useful not just for the students, for us as well. You know, changing the colour of a background that I do myself, because actually I find white can be really harsh, and actually quite a lot of people are the same without realising. So yeah, it's great. And like I say, share it with everybody. It's fab.
Brilliant. Thanks, all. Yeah, no, definitely. I completely agree. And I think it's really important to highlight, you know, the different features of accessibility and how to be more inclusive, you know, across kind of our use of tech. I think yeah, you're right, Kim, you know, it is the great equalizer. And I think it's really highlighted some of the, you know, societal differences, COVID, over the last years. And it's been really eye-opening, especially working in the college, who, you know, just students who don't have access to devices or connectivity, and how widespread that is. And, you know, I think it's really, really quite shocked me to see how widespread that is. And I think it's really important that we all remember, you know, that it's not the same for everybody, and we've got to be as inclusive as possible. So yeah, thanks for that. It's really interesting. I'm going to bring Kat back in, I believe, because we're almost done. And I think Kat is here, but on mute. If you're talking.
Hello, sorry. I mean, it's not a webinar unless someone's been on mute at least once. So
and we've had a dog. We've had a dog.
I was going to say, we're like webinar bingo.
Yeah.
Dog.
I'm going to start doing that for all my future ones. Thank you so much. So interesting. I love hearing about all of the different journeys from different departments. And accessibility is really close to my heart. My original innovator project was around accessibility. And looking at tools for dyslexia. But as you said, everybody's already doing so much. So I switched over to looking at mental health and looking at my staff room and things like that. But it's just so lovely to hear about the sort of the journeys and that openness, and the fact that your college is so willing to encourage people to try things out. It's been such a treat, and it's been such a great webinar for me. I could sit back and have a cup of tea. Lovely. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to take a little break for the webinars because we've got half-term week, and then I'm actually having a holiday after half-term, which is very, very exciting. So we won't be back until, I'm just checking my diary, Tuesday the 17th of June, where we will be joined by Luke Craig from Britannia Village Primary, and he's going to be talking about computing in a primary school and how Google tools have helped him with his curriculum and delivering their content. So I'm really excited about that one because I'm a primary computing teacher. But I cannot thank you all enough, staff from Bridgend College. So I'm going to ask you all to think of one final parting word of advice for anybody watching. So I'll let you all have a think for a moment, and then we'll start with Scott and just go round, if that's okay.
Sounds good to me. I think I have one. I think you kind of just almost said it there, Kat. About trying something new. And I think if I tend to try and apply that to my entire life, if there's any, I was speaking to Dean Stokes, the Google education manager, the other day, and he said something along the lines of, if you knew ahead of time that you wouldn't fail, what would you do? Fine. And then follow that question up with, and why wouldn't you start that today? And I really like that. I really like that. That really stuck with me. You know, why not take the step to do something in a different way? And that's my parting word, which I've unashamedly stolen from Dean Stokes. But hey ho, it is a Google webinar, so I think that's allowed.
You won't tell him, it's fine. Kim, is there anything you wanted to add?
I mean, how do you follow that? Mine's going to be lovely and simple. Is follow Google Accessibility on Twitter, because like I say, things are changing all the time. It's just getting better. So they're at Google Access. So follow those guys, and yeah, again, like Scott, try out some of those accessibility features for yourself. If you're a tutor and you reduce that stigma of using accessible options, then that'll really help some of your learners, because there will be ones that are in there who are potentially hiding that they may really need something. So if you reduce that stigma, hopefully you'll reach more learners and they'll do really well.
I'm absolutely appalled that I didn't already follow that account, so I've just done it now. Thank you. I don't know how I've missed that one. Pete.
I'd say that if you're new to Google Workspace, then just get stuck in with it. A bit like Scott, just try things out. You're not going to break anything. So just, push the boundaries, see what it is that you think you could actually do with it, and reach out to people either on Twitter or, other Google reference schools, Google reference colleges. There's actually a really good community of Google educators and trainers and innovators who are actually really keen to help and support people. So reach out on Twitter, reach out through emails, whatever, and get the support for it.
Brilliant.
Left me a lot to say, is it?
So yes, actually, you've got the easy one.
Yeah, I'd say be brave, do it. Just do it. It isn't going to be as bad as you think. Actually, it's pretty simple. And you won't regret it. It's great. And have fun along the way. So, yeah, do it. That's my 2 words.
I can't stress enough how lovely it's been to have the 4 of you here today, because it's just been so nice to see these lovely smiling faces. And yeah, it's great to hear about your journey. So hopefully we will hear from you again in the future, because it's been nice to meet you all today. And thank you. Thank you for sharing your experiences. We will finish up here and see you all again soon. So thank you. Bye.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.